All right. Hey guys, this is Motor Racing Podcast. I'm Kevin and this is Don. Jordan won't be joining us tonight due to scheduling conflicts. So me and Don are going to be on it tonight with some information, some good conversation. How you doing, Don?
Just another lovely Wednesday, man. We're halfway to race weekend.
I hear you. I'm excited about Dover, man.
Dover's going to be awesome.
Another concrete track. Which brings up, later in conversation, tire wear. Last time we were at a concrete track like this, we were at Bristol, and the tire wear was absolutely horrendous.
Atrocious.
I, for one, want to see more tire wear, but the tire wear at Bristol, as in, I'd like to see tires last maybe 3/4 of a stage, which makes these guys have to either flip or save and slow down to save all their stuff.
Well, we can use Bristol as a really good example. Look what Denny and Martin Truex were able to accomplish. They had the exact same tire compound as every other driver on the track, and they managed to take care of their stuff. And then when the going got tough, they had tires to use up, and everybody else was blowing them out. So the tire wear is an interesting thing. You would think with the technology and stuff that Goodyear uses, they would have some sort of formula figured out where at each individual track, they have a compound that meshes with that specific track, whether it be Bristol concrete, Dover concrete, and then of course all your asphalt tracks. You get the ones that mix it. You get the concrete and tarmac asphalt on Martinsville, where you get the half and half, right?
The quarters being concrete.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got compounds figured out for that too. So it was really interesting to see the way Bristol played out and how bad the tires actually did. I know they went with a softer compound, but you would think in 2024 Goodyear would have their everything, up to snuff by now.
Yeah. I mean, I know us as fans wanted to see tire wear because we were tired of going to these short tracks and seeing the same guy run out front and then with Bristol, it was all about track position. It all seemed like if you didn't start in the top 5, you didn't have a chance at the lead. You didn't have a chance at winning the race. Now, with the tire wear that we saw back a couple weeks ago, if you compare that to the tire wear we really didn't see at the night race back in September, huge fucking difference.
Right.
Huge fucking difference. And I don't know about you, at the beginning of the race, it looked like we were going to have a little bit of tire wear because we could already tell that the track wasn't taking rubber. Within 25, 30 laps, we were already seeing big chunks, big lines of rubber just lining the walls.
Right.
And then we started to see tire issues. Kyle Busch took the lead there early. And with having the lead, it looked like everybody was trying to run balls to the wall.
Right.
From the get-go. And it's 35, 40 laps in, and we start having blown tires, and everybody figures out, oh, shit, we can't run balls to the walls. Track's not taking rubber. All these drivers are having the same problem as far as grip and tire wear, minus whatever's going on with their car, whether it's loose, tight, not enough turn, whatever. And then we go to Dover this weekend where the abrasiveness is the same as Bristol. The banking, if I'm not mistaken, the banking isn't as steep as Bristol, but it comes in. I mean, it plays a factor, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime you've got a concrete track, and especially with the issues we saw at Bristol a few weeks ago, it's going to be a concern. It's going to be on the top of everyone's mind. How are we going to attack this racetrack? Are we going to go hard in the first 40 laps and see how the tires hold up, or do we back off a little bit and kind of let the tires come to us and let that information organically produce itself? That'll be a really interesting chess match that the teams and the crew chiefs play with the drivers. You also got to take into consideration Goodyear's probably not going to put the same compound that they put for Bristol to avoid what happened at Bristol. And then you got to take into consideration they're actually bringing 3 different compounds to North Wilkesboro, will we see NASCAR start giving these teams more options as far as tires, whether it be a harder compound, a softer compound, or the wet tires?
Almost set up just like Formula One, where you have
Bingo.
a super soft, medium, hard, and then you have your intermediate and wet tires.
Exactly.
I, as a fan, honestly, I would love to see the drivers have more choice. Because some compounds, depending, and they may not go the same direction as Formula One. They may not say, okay, we're going to give you a soft compound, medium compound, hard compound. You guys figure it out.
Right.
They'll probably, tires will do different things. They'll feel different. They'll do different things with the car. So I guess we'll test it and see to make sure it's not going to be a complete clusterfuck at North Wilkesboro, with NASCAR giving the teams this leeway.
I think it'll be a good bounce back from what we experienced at Bristol. I don't think Goodyear is going to let this one slip away. They don't want to get on NASCAR's bad side, that's for sure.
Yeah.
As far as starting to raise questions about other manufacturers possibly bringing in a tire. I know Goodyear's been around for decades and decades, but it is possible for people to lose their jobs. Everyone is replaceable.
I mean, if you're not bringing a product that everybody's happy with, or, it's consumer to producer.
Correct.
If you're not producing a product that consumer wants to buy, as far as, and the consumer being race teams, us fans telling these guys, hey, this is not okay. And the driver's saying, this is not okay. You have two different groups of people in the same room that don't coincide with each other, really, telling you, hey, this fucking sucks.
Right.
So now Goodyear, do you think that puts pressure on Goodyear, though, especially maybe if NASCAR is talking to other tire manufacturers?
I think Goodyear can feel their own manufactured pressure. I don't think NASCAR has actually put pressure on them yet. But Goodyear could have a little bit weighing on their shoulders this upcoming weekend with this concrete track, and making sure they put on a good show and make sure they're not having tires fail left and right. Because that got, as fun as it was at times at Bristol, that's still not a genuine race that we want to partake in. We want to see the drivers figure it out, not the tires.
Exactly. You don't want outside sources configuring the inside deal.
It's no different than your NBA refs and your NFL referees affecting and dictating the outcomes of these games. Now, I'm a firm believer in don't leave yourself in position to let the refs dictate the outcome. And NASCAR could be in the same situation where they're like, hey, we're not going to let y'all dictate the outcomes of these races. Make sure you get a good product on our concrete tracks, please.
Yeah. Dover, I mean, especially with the weather for the spring race. A lot of here last couple of years, the spring race at Dover has been rainy, cloudy, overcast.
Right.
So that plays a lot, I think, into how much the track rubbers up.
Right.
And tire wear exactly. And the way that the weather has been the last couple of years, being rainy, like Talladega, we got a green racetrack this past weekend because it rained between the Xfinity race and the Cup race.
Yep, and they just finished drying that track by the time they were doing all the pre-race ceremonies there on the front straightaway with all the fans and stuff.
So either way, it got rained on, washed off, brushed off, and blew off.
Right.
So green racetrack, Dover, if it rains between the races, or even if we have a double header, that if the track is already rubbered up, if we end up having to have an Xfinity race on Sunday before our Cup race, the rubber that's going to come from the Xfinity guys, that's going to affect the compound that Goodyear brings for the Cup guys as well.
Absolutely. All those little details that you brought up are really good points. The good thing is I don't think we're going to have to worry about too much rain. I'm on Dover's weather map right now, and it looks like we got sunny skies all the way through the weekend. No threats of rain, which means the ARCA series that's racing, trucks don't race there this week, but Xfinity does. So ARCA and Xfinity will be putting down some rubber, other than what the little bit that gets brushed off when they clean the track between races. It should produce a pretty good show as far as the Cup guys getting on there with a little bit more of a layer of rubber down.
What are temperatures looking like for the weekend?
Right now, I've got precipitation at 10%. I've got humidity at 55 on Sunday, which is perfect, and then 78 for a high. That's part
the racetrack's going to be not hot, but it's going to be warm.
track temp will probably hit about 90, 95. If the air temp is sitting at 78, that's kind of the adjustment. The air being 50% humidity is not terrible. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty dry day. I don't think it's going to be like a September Texas race where a lot of cars were slipping and sliding around because it was 130 on the track, you know?
So do you figure now with the warmer the track, obviously the less grip. So do you feel like to start the race off, we're going to have a lot more race cars, a lot more drivers complaining about loose race cars rather than tight race cars?
You know, it all depends. It really depends on how people or the drivers choose to attack the race. If drivers are trying to get up front in a hurry and get track position on these restarts, like where we're having to do at most tracks. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Hang on one second. Help me out, Kevin. Where were we on? Your question was, I got caught up in this weather.
With the way the weather is this weekend, obviously the warmer the track, the slicker it's going to be, the less grip.
Right.
You know, you were trying to tell, you know, it depends on how the drivers are going to attack this race with track.
Correct.
Position.
My apologies. Correct. And it really depends on how they go about their day. They could take it easy and because they're concerned with the tire issue, like we were just discussing, or they could feel like the weather and everything's lining up with all the events going on at Dover this weekend. They could feel like the track could be really racy and just get right after it, you know?
Well, not trying to get in too much to Dover because that might take up too much of our Friday show.
Right.
Let's talk about the fuel saving bullshit on these super speedway races.
Okay.
Taking away, I think, away from the excitement of the race or maybe the diet. You know, to me, Sunday's race didn't seem as dicey as it would normally be on a hot, sunny Talladega afternoon.
Right.
And coming from Jesse Love, who we talked about last night, has no experience in these new Cup cars at all, giving his opinion, but also stating facts. You know, the fuel saving has got them running 5 miles an hour slower than the Xfinity cars.
Right.
It's got them running 2 seconds slower than a lower division.
Right.
Who's got less horsepower. The packages are different. Cars are completely fucking different. Do you feel like with the facts that Jesse Love gave out with those, do you feel like that somebody, whether it's NASCAR, the teams, the drivers, somebody could be doing something different to fix these fuel saving issues?
I think it's a product of drivers and crew chiefs figuring out if we save fuel here, it'll benefit us in the long run. It's another pawn piece moved in the chess match that is a 400-mile race or a 500-mile race, like in Talladega's case. NASCAR is going to have to figure out a way to take this away from drivers, but then what does that always snowball into? The drivers find something else that helps give them that small little advantage, that little inkling of an advantage, whether it be fuel saving, tire wear, flipping stages on road courses because you're not going to lose a lap if you pit 3 laps before the stage ends. The teams are always finding ways to beat the rules, and NASCAR has to react and come up with new rules, to which then the drivers just find ways around that. I don't know how we fix the fuel saving because they're not just going to keep going slower and slower and slower. That's going to be really silly, right?
Yeah.
So the man, that's a really good. Man, I might have to let you take a stab at this one. How does NASCAR stop these guys from fuel saving? How do they get the Cup guys back up to full speed, full throttle, and racing the entire race?
I feel like at these super speedways, I feel like these guys not necessarily need to be aggressive and balls to the wall from the get-go. But I don't want to wait until like Sunday, 6 to go. We didn't start seeing any movement in anybody trying to make moves and pretty much I want the race to give me anxiety. I
Right.
want to watch a super speedway race and get anxiety, and not just for my driver, but the entire field.
Right.
In order for them, I think for them to do that, for the first 30 or 40 laps, I figure, these guys are not just saving, but they're trying to figure out the handling of their race car, because with these super speedways, we don't have practice.
Right.
So these guys don't know how their cars are going to react in dirty air, how they're going to react up front in traffic, how they're going to drive, how they're going to handle. I figure the first 40 or 50 laps, that's what these guys are trying to do, at least within the first pit window. Which at Talladega, would they say 43 to 47 laps? So at least in the first 40 laps, they should be figuring out what kind of adjustments they need to make.
And what's interesting is you bring up all these points about drivers taking it easy and figuring.
We lost you a minute, Don. Can't hear you, buddy. All right, we're having a little bit of technical issues, guys. But to further point on what Don was talking about and what I was talking about, these guys. Oh, here he is. Let's get him here. Good?
Yeah, you got me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a phone call come through.
Oh, you're good.
We were talking about the fuel saving and how to get past it, because it's going to get to a point where they're just trying to go save, and then the last like 6 laps, like you said, go all out. Do you penalize teams? Do you say, if y'all aren't racing, we're gonna hold you for a lap? And
Well, see, I think penalizing and making rules just pisses off not only the drivers, but it pisses off the fans, because not only does it restrict the drivers and everything that they can do, considering that restrictor plate races are already, excuse the pun, but restricted enough as far as not just horsepower and stuff, but rules, regulations, and all that stuff.
Right.
To me, NASCAR fixes the problem. Add stages. Boom. Problem fixed. Super speedway races, add stages.
So you get your 2 stages that give playoff points, correct? Because the end of the race doesn't award playoff points. That's your points for the day total, right?
Yes, correct.
So then they award the points for both stages. Are they going to downsize those points in those 2 stages in order to compensate for a third, an extra stage added? Or do they give out an extra 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 points for the top 10?
See, so what they're doing right now, so whoever wins the stage gets a playoff point, and then they get 10 regular points.
Right.
I think that if they add an extra stage, I think it should count whoever wins the stage. They take the playoff point away for that extra stage, because you're only getting that for 6 races out of 38. To me, I think it should be an extra stage, still award those stage points, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, etc. But take away that playoff point on the extra stage.
So then we open up a whole new issue with fans already being grumpy about there being stage racing. And you talk about, I don't care. I hear it all the time about people complaining about the commercials on TV. Personally, I don't care. Commercials are going to be there. Ads happen. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But then they add a stage and they're adding commercials, which is just going to, it's just a never ending cycle of.
Yeah, it seemed like Sunday, the commercials, it was like we were back for 2 minutes and boom, I was seeing another commercial and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right. And see, I'm so laid back with it. I'm just like, that's a commercial now,
So Sunday we had a 188 lap cup race, and we had a 60, 60, and 68 stage. So if we split and we put another stage in for our super speedway races, so if we would have put a 4th stage in Sunday, that would have put our stage breaks right there at the pit window. How interesting does that make that?
it makes it intriguing because do you have guys, because at Talladega, you get lapped if you pit, right? If you do a complete, if you're running with the pack and you pit, you will get lapped by the time the pack comes back around, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no way for drivers to flip stages by like road courses where they pit on 3 laps to go in the stage and they get out and they just cycle back to the front of the field. Yeah, man, I don't. It's a really tough one, and it makes sense why NASCAR is having trouble reacting to the fuel saving issue that they're having, right? Because how do you solve it?
Here would be my thing. Why don't we even it out and figure out how we put stage racing? To me, eliminate the cautions.
Right.
Award the points, eliminate the fucking cautions. Like, to me, it's ignorant.
Right.
To me, because it's causing unnecessary cautions. But we talked about this. NASCAR, with all these new glass race cars, are pretty much they're caution-free races.
Right.
Minus the stage breaks.
Right.
To me, I feel like if the driver had to handle the car and take his car and race the racetrack and rely on unknown cautions rather than, hey, okay, just save it, just back off, keep what you're doing. We're 4 laps out from a stage break. Guaranteed caution. If you take away the stage caution, that throws a whole new rock in the bucket for the crew chiefs, for pit strategy.
And it's a really good rock because you're not given a freebie, right? You're not given that free caution to go do what you need to do. No, you figure it out on the go. And if you're one of the teams throughout the season that can't figure it out on the go, you're going to stand out. And I think that's important. I think that added a lot of the excitement. When we talk about the 2000s and the late 90s and that style of racing, albeit I think there was a lot more freight train racing than people like to admit to remember. They talk about how, well, we're just watching guys not pass. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to y'all, but there was a lot of that going on in the 90s and 2000s too, where cars were just stuck and people couldn't make moves. So we're, apples to apples, but it's going to be really interesting to see how NASCAR plays this one out, as far from a professional aspect to the drivers and crew chiefs and them having to figure the race out even more than they already do. And from a fan aspect, because it's going to affect fans, whether positively or negatively. Adding a stage is going to ruffle some feathers.
See, to me, like, no matter what you do, it's going to piss somebody off.
Right.
No matter, and to me, I hate to be that person, but I used to be that person that walked on eggshells because I was afraid to piss this person off or this person off or what. Now, NASCAR needs to be, I get they're making money off a fan base, but even the fans that are bitching and moaning and complaining are turning the fucking TV on next Sunday.
Right.
Either way, they're getting their viewership. So why not just pretty much not tell them, but show the fans, you know what, we're going to do this. We don't care who we piss off. This is what we're implementing. You like it? Cool. You don't? Turn the fucking TV off.
Well, what's interesting about that is I think NASCAR is kind of taking that approach with the next gen car. They got so much pushback and hate, content, I guess, throughout YouTube and all the social media platforms when they introduced that next gen car. And I'm sitting back like, I'm so confused. I thought the whole point of life was to progress and to adapt and to try new things and see where we can get better. That's what the next gen car tried to do. As the seasons are going on, we're learning that, yeah, some of the things aren't as cool as the Gen 6 or the COT or the Gen 4. But that happens. There were things about those generations that weren't as cool or as good as the next gen car. So it's one of those things where, like you were saying, you're able to kind of see it from a different perspective now. Whereas you don't walk on eggshells when you speak to people. I think NASCAR's kind of taking that same approach, and they're just like, you know what, we're going to do this. And one way or another, y'all are still tuning in and you're still commenting and you're still clicking on it. So,
I mean, as much as the clickbait that I see from NASCAR on Facebook. And then I scroll, and it's funny because most of this clickbait, I see your comments. First comment I see is one of yours. And it's either got something to do with people being clowns or people bitching and moaning, complaining. And that's really all people are doing on these clickbait posts.
Right.
Bitching, moaning, complaining, and doing all this shit. And to me, you got to find a happy medium. This car isn't perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to give you everything that you want on the racetrack as a fan.
Right.
Okay? People are just going to have to accept that fact now. Me, I believe we've had a lot of issues out of this being the third year from the next gen car. I believe we've had a lot of issues. I think the next gen car debuted a year too early. And I think I don't know how many people I have agree with that. I'm sure I'll have a bunch agree with that.
NASCAR came out and said they were supposed to debut it in 2023, and then they got 2021, and they actually pushed it a year back from there. So maybe they should have taken another year. We'll never know.
Well, and I think they were going to be smart and take that next year to get all that extra stuff. But then when they did, boom, COVID.
Right.
A bunch of places shut down. Couldn't get pieces for this car. Couldn't be so
Couldn't
many
have workers.
Yeah, and all that stuff. So I think NASCAR should have said, hey, I know you guys were excited to see the next gen car, but we're going to have to wait another year, because I think NASCAR should have waited another year after the pandemic, because we had the Kurt Busch forced into early retirement because of this car.
Right.
Alex Bowman, who was hurt with a concussion because of this car.
Right.
I mean, I think NASCAR should have took a year off. There's a lot of stuff. I like this car. The way that it looks, not necessarily the way that it drives, because I just got done 2 hours worth of NASCAR Heat 5 at Darlington. Fuck that car. Okay. What we talked about yesterday, too simple. They've made this car too simple, and there's not enough to do to it to be able to make it do what you want, like with the last car.
Right.
So there's so much stuff to nitpick. There's so much stuff to say, hey, this is cool, this is working. And there's a lot of stuff on this car to say that this is not working and this fucking sucks. But it's part of the sport. Change is part of every sport.
Right. Do you think NASCAR, I mean, clearly they see the numbers. They know their viewership. They know who's watching, and they know where people are watching from too. As much as people think they're off the grid, they know exactly where the hot spots are for viewership, and they know exactly where to aim, and they're not stupid. Let's call it what it is. As much as we couch racers like to say, well, NASCAR's this, NASCAR's that. They need to do this, they need to do that. No matter what, they're still running a business, and no matter what, you're still tuning in every week. So,
I mean, they're still tuning in every week. They're still buying merch.
Right.
Still buying tickets to put their asses into seats.
Yep.
To races that they're complaining about, which makes no fucking sense. Why are you going to spend the several $100s to go sit out in the heat and watch a race that you have complained and bitched and said that you have no care for?
Right. I think the only issue I've had with a couple of the races I've been to was the heat, because I have such a ball at these events. It doesn't matter who wins. I've been to races where Hendrick has won most of them. It's not my team, but I still freaking have a blast, and I love seeing Hendrick fans get excited to see Hendrick win. Like, that's cool to me. And it's really, like you said, it's really strange that people will actually spend their money and find things to complain about. It's like, let's go enjoy the event,
It's insane how many couch racers, you call them couch crew chiefs, is what.
Right.
The
experts. We'll call them the experts just to have fun.
We'll put quotes on that too. It's insane to see how many people bitch, but it's also insane to see, with all those bitching people, how much the sport has grown. Look, I didn't care for the Clash at the Coliseum. I will be one to tell you that. I think if it would have been a half mile, the Clash probably would have been a little more entertaining. Just to me, there's all those cars on that small track, and when somebody turns, it ends 4 people's day.
Right.
So that's just mine. I still tune in and watch. I'm one of those people that bitch and complain too, but racing is my passion, and I'd rather be able to enjoy it than not be able to enjoy it. The LA Coliseum, now they've already announced that that's not going to be a thing next year.
Right. And I think that's a good choice. I think what we did 3 years total with the next gen.
2021.
No,
we did it with the debut of the next gen. 2022 right. And last year and this year.
So we're at 3 events. I think 2 probably would have been enough. Maybe they had some sort of deal striked up with the LA Coliseum and those boys.
They did. They signed, I think, actually a 4-year deal. But I think because of the lack of attendance on the second one and obviously the third one, which
right.
NASCAR had no control over that, because whether they ran the race on Saturday, ran the race on Sunday or Monday, the rain and the weather was going to keep fans out of the seats.
Yeah.
Either way, that was completely out of NASCAR's control. If it would have been a Sunday weekend or a sunny weekend, I feel like with the way that we had everything going, the heat races and all that stuff, that NASCAR, they would have had a good turnout. But I believe there's a lot of people that think the Clash should come back to Daytona and stay at Daytona. The only thing I have against that is with the Clash being run at Daytona, it's a super speedway. You guys, it's a wreck fest. Right. The last time I think we saw the Clash at Daytona was when, or on the big oval, was when Jimmy Johnson won it.
Yeah.
Where he spun him and Matt DiBenedetto, I think, got together, collected the field, and Jimmy ended up winning that.
Right.
The next year, I think we have the Clash on the road course. That, or a year for that or 2. I know 2021, Kyle Busch won the Busch Clash, or excuse me, 2020, Kyle won the Busch Clash.
That was when Ryan and
Chase Elliott got together in that last chicane.
Which I love Chase, or I can't remember which one of them said it. I think maybe Chase said it. He was like, "What am I not supposed to?" Like, because people were pissed off at him, Ryan Blaney fans to be exact. And he was like, "Am I not supposed to? I'm out here to win. Like, I'm going for the win. What do you want me to do? Like, I'm not trying to wreck Ryan. I'm trying to win." And so I love that he said that, because I think it kind of got a lot of the people that were angry.
Well, him and Ryan are friends, so I'm sure they talked it out. Which, there's a difference between having if I'm Chase Elliott and I'm not friends with Ryan Blaney, he's just a guy that I race with on Sundays.
He's a peer.
Okay. Then that might have been a little bit of a different conversation. Right. I believe Ryan probably had an anger piece that he had to frustrate out to Chase, but after that, it was all cool.
Right.
To me, that incident right there, complete racing incident. I don't find anybody at fault. Do I think Chase could have backed off a little bit? Yes, but then that reverts back to what Chase was saying. I'm trying to win a fucking race.
Right.
It produced really good racing, and Kyle Busch stayed right there in contention, man.
Right.
I mean, Kyle, I don't know how many Kyle stole
back
over
into
the years. Yeah. I mean, backing into wins, man. Not even the week after that was started to be a thing, Kyle backs into a win at Bristol.
Because Briscoe and Reddick got after it. And
I hear, and I was sitting in turn 2 for that race. And one of the best.
Are you serious?
That's yeah. And it was awesome to watch that. Reddick and Briscoe, two of the best dirt guys in the business, man, just going at it in these big old cup cars.
Yep.
And it was an experience.
So that was something I was going to bring up with the Bristol dirt. And I'm kind of glad they tried it and they're going away from it. I think you could have done a better job especially with the fans and dirt race followers, instead of shoving them out there on these cup cars that were designed for asphalt and concrete. Go set up 30 dirt late models and make it an open weekend and have these guys out there racing late models. Be like, look at their skills on this stuff too. Instead, I think.
Well, see, I think that was a lot there. I saw a lot of people that had suggested that.
Right.
To me, I would have been in agreement with that in 2021. When we had our first dirt race, just because the cars bouncing around, these weren't meant for that. When the next gen cars hit the dirt, I didn't have a problem. Not a complaint.
They look like they did all right.
Well, you have the lower base, the wider tires, just like a dirt car.
Right.
So to me, I think NASCAR set that up just fine, but it didn't work out in the long run because of fans bitching. And there's another thing with if the Clash needs to be moved around. Everybody saying needs to go back to Daytona. I believe the Clash sign a contract. Let's have it here for 2 years and let's move it somewhere else.
Yep.
I believe the championship race should be the same deal.
Yep. It throws off the end of the playoffs too, where you're not able to prepare for Phoenix all year long because there's a high possibility, like William Byron, of making the championship 4.
And you hope that that whatever track is at the end of the year where you guys are going to race for the title, you really hope that that's a second date for that racetrack.
Right.
Because if you get a racetrack, say, Dover only has one date. Say they stick I don't see them sticking the championship race at Dover just because of the time of year and it being fucking dog ass cold.
Right.
But for example, if they stuck it down at Dover, Dover's only got one date a year. That championship race would be that. So nobody can prepare. They'd have their notes from the previous race and that's it. But you really can't take those with you because the date, time, temperature, weather, all that stuff is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
Perfect example, the All-Star race. When we had COVID, NASCAR did a great job of saying, okay, you know what? We're not going to let this shut everything down. We're going to run a fucking all-star race. Hands off to Bristol Motor Speedway doing that. I was at that all-star race, my first and only all-star race to date. Hopefully, I'm looking to go to North Wilkesboro here in a couple weeks. They're selling single-day tickets at $145 a piece.
Which reminds me, I need to send in my request for a pass there. See if I can get going in there.
Are you going?
I'm gonna try. If I get approved for my pass, I'll try and get out there. We'll see how it goes.
That'd be awesome. Then I'll have to buy tickets to that race.
It's like a 50-50 right now. When is that? Is that like in 6 weeks?
Yes.
June?
Well, excuse me. No, it's in May, so it'll be the weekend before Memorial Day. So the weekend of like the 20th.
So, okay.
But moving the championship race around, the All-Star race, Bristol produced one of the best All-Star races that I had seen in a while.
That was the first time they introduced the numbers being moved, and people came unglued on that.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Now I like it. I like the numbers better forward rather than backwards.
Right.
But the All-Star race needs to move. I know they said the All-Star race could possibly be hosted at Bowman Gray next year, with North Wilkesboro getting a points-paying race. That'll be interesting.
That'll be a very interesting All-Star race and fun for fans in that area. I think that's going to be I think that'll turn out to be a really good show if they end up pulling that off. I don't think they should make Bowman Gray a points race.
Bowman Gray is going to be the All-Star.
Right. I'm just elaborating
on okay.
Them. I don't think they should go that far, but I think it'd be a lot of fun as an all-star race.
Honestly, I don't think NASCAR needs to go to Bowman Gray, period. It's a quarter-mile track. Cup cars don't belong on it.
So basically, you're introducing the same issues at LA.
Not just those issues, but NASCAR, that place would have to have a lot of stuff done to it, a lot of renovations, because the fences are literally nothing but guardrails. There's no safer barrier. There's no infield. It's all grass. Right. The track isn't even wide enough for 2 cup cars. Tony Stewart and Clint Boyer tested the next-gen car at Bowman Gray, and you weren't able to run too wide there.
Huh.
Unless NASCAR is going to take Bowman Gray and make it bigger and renovate it and do all this, I think the trucks might be able to run too wide. Maybe. Modified races is the best and keep going stock.
Yeah.
The stock asphalt or the super late model stocks. Honestly, Rockingham, let's see how that goes, because we need to bring a bunch of these tracks back, the tracks that we're not going to anymore. Kentucky hasn't been on the schedule for a while, and Kentucky actually produced a really good race. I would love to see this next gen car at Kentucky.
Why did they get away from Kentucky?
I don't know the exact reason why.
Okay.
I hear that it had to do with the Ford manufacturing plant up there ran out of space, and I guess NASCAR didn't re-sign a contract in time, and they found another track to put on Kentucky's date. Instead of moving Kentucky's date, they just took it, and now several thousand Fords sit in the infield and all over the track. Kentucky Motor Speedway is nothing but a parking lot right now.
Really? So Ford bought up some of the land and is just using it for
It
overstock,
is
right?
using the actual racetrack.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
Here they stopped going for attendance issues. By 2020, poor attendance led to NASCAR dropping the track from the Cup schedule. All NASCAR races came to a halt in 2022. So that's been 2 years since they've been there, and I don't see anything about them going back anytime soon.
No, and it sucks. I'm excited about Iowa.
That's going to be an awesome race.
It's not traditionally a short track or set up like a short track race, but man, it's going to be insane because I remember watching the Xfinity and Truck Series races here, and these trucks and Xfinity cars running 3-4 wide at Iowa.
Yep.
And they're not set up like these Cup cars with the wider tires. Excuse me, the wider tires, being able to get more grip, run wider, run a tighter line. I'm excited for Iowa to see what that produces. And another issue with this next gen car, if this car can take such a beating, why in the hell at Martinsville and Bristol are we not seeing Dale Earnhardt and Terry Labonte shit with these cars?
As far as drivers moving each other out of the way,
that, like the beating and banging, these cars can take a beating, and I've seen more beating and banging at Bristol back with the COT cars than I have these damn things.
Right. These next gen cars are complex. They're simple, but they're complex. They've got a lot of integrity in the body and where the frame sits inside the body, where they can take those kinds of hits. But if you hit wrong on just one turn, your wheel gets caught up on somebody else's wheel or whatever the case is.
And then we have a Corey LaJoie incident.
You have the toe link, right? You have it's so hard to ride that line of aggressive and beating and banging to basically playing soft and hoping your tires make the end of the race. Not your tires, but
I'm not trying to say these guys need to be running into the corner grabbing fifth gear. Of course, we saw Ross Chastain do that, and we see what it does to race cars at Martinsville grabbing fifth gear.
Hey, it worked for him.
hey, I mean, it brought him into the championship four. So, but I want to get back to, Rubbin's racing. I want to get back to rubbing. I don't know how long it's been, and I know every now and then we'll see a donut on the door or we'll see race damage. We don't see that kind of stuff with this car anymore. It seems like everybody has treated this car like it's glass and wrapped in bubble wrap.
And so what fixes that? Do we make the cars what fixes the driver styles? Because you can't force drivers to drive the way they drove in the 90s, right? In the 2000s. So are drivers, maybe it's a product of sim racing where they're so naturally not hitting anything for the most part. From what I've seen on online streaming with these professionals, they take very good care of their race cars, and it's a simulation. Could that be transferring over into real life where they're like, well, it's working in sims, so if I don't beat and bang here, maybe we'll get better results from it.
And see, I'm in agreement with that, but when I should have explained myself. Beating and banging or rubbing, we don't at Martinsville, and excuse my language, I will find the clip later and send it to you so you can watch the whole thing.
Okay.
COT cars, Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson. Of course, we remember how Kyle was back in those days.
Yep.
I found a piece where I don't believe these drivers are driving like this anymore. They've gotten soft. And to me, there's a lot of drivers out there that still hold that hard edge like Kyle Busch. But you have Kyle was yelling at Jimmy over the radio. beating and banging. Do you remember okay, so it was a cop car at Martinsville, and I can't remember, let's say it was 2011. But he had been beating on Jimmy's bumper for about 40 laps, and Jimmy gave him the finger out the window. It was like, do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do.
Kyle got over the radio and said, if you would have let me go 40 fucking laps ago, you would still have a bumper. Well,
Right.
Jimmy threw the finger out the window, and Kyle had said something along the lines of, go ahead, throw me another bird. I'll wreck your little shit, you little bitch.
Yeah.
And I was like, to me, I want that temper back in the race car. And not just for Kyle, across the field.
You know why that changed over the years, right? Because sponsors were becoming such a valuable asset. All of that ran right into cancel culture and everybody tiptoeing around and not wanting to lose sponsors.
See, to me, that has softened up the sport tremendously.
It really has, but
I don't like it.
What do you do when companies are jumping off of your brand because you're cussing out people on the radio and they don't want to become a product of cancel culture? Now, I think what's helping is some of these drivers are getting that edge back. And I think it's because the cancel culture hit where people are like, all right, enough is enough. Like, we got to stop canceling everything just because you don't fucking agree with it. Or just because he said a bad word. I'm sorry, bad words are expressions. They're not any different than any other word in the English language.
I have plenty of sentence enhancers that I can use. Okay.
Right. Exactly. So I think that might be coming back around as the cancel culture hits, because I think a lot of drivers were tiptoeing around their sponsors and not wanting to upset them with the things they would say.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you feel like maybe that's why M&M's left the sport?
Probably. Why else would they leave the sport? They've been with the sport for decades.
And then all of a sudden, 15 years with Kyle Busch, 53 wins and 2 championships, and you just up and decide to leave.
There's no
reason.
Does
that have something to do with the edge that Kyle had? Is that why we've seen him settle down quite a bit since leaving Joe Gibbs Racing, or even since M&M's left?
Look, I don't believe in coincidences. I think everything happens because of action and reaction. And yeah, Kyle had such a high intensity attitude and demeanor about him that maybe Mars and M&M's were like, all right, like, we got to kind of choose our battles here because we're catching slack on the back end of it for how this guy's acting with our logos all over his chest. So yeah, I think that's absolutely probably the reason that M&M's jumped off board.
Well, and I feel like, to me, a demeanor outside the race car is, you can have the ego inside the race car. You know what I'm saying? Granted, fans, obviously the ones that pay for the NASCAR app every month so they can listen to spotters radio, see the different cameras, yada, 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 everything the NASCAR app gives you. And then the people at the races who buy the scanners, who rent the scanners. And then you have sponsors, like when you go to Texas, who was it that just had Interstate batteries on their car? Was it Ty?
Ty Gibbs. Yeah, he ran the bright green Interstate batteries.
Interstate Batteries is based right there in Texas. So you have the big wigs up watching wherever.
Right.
So, I mean, I kind of get you have, being watched by God's eye type thing. But then again, what happens, Denny Hamlin has taken over the villain role of NASCAR because Kyle Busch can no longer do that because of sponsors.
But I think he's doing it in a clean way. Denny has embraced the villain role in such a clean manner that it's not going to affect his sponsors.
You feel like he's showing it more or less on the social media and stuff side rather than wrecking and getting pissed at everybody out on the racetrack.
Right. He's doing the trolling and I beat your favorite driver. He got out at Pocono last year and held up 7 fingers for his 7 wins at Pocono, and everybody's booing him. And he's like, well, it is what it is. I think he's embraced that aspect of it instead of getting aggravated, getting out of your race car and walking up to somebody, pulling their helmet off and punching them in the face, where your sponsors are like, whoa. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
And that's, to me, that Ty Gibbs should have got nipped in the bud for that at Martinsville when you bring that up. Do you remember that shit happening between him and Sam Mayer?
Yeah, him and Sam Mayer got into it. I think he approached him with his helmet on and started swinging, if I remember correctly.
Threw a punch, and I can't remember. It landed somewhere on either Sam's neck, shoulder, or head area.
Right.
But Sam already had his helmet off and then ran after him. And then Ty continues to go ahead and throw punches with the helmet on. To me, if I were Tony, in the words of Tony Stewart, he's a little bitch.
Right.
You don't throw fists with the helmet on, for one. That's not a racer. And for all you guys that are saying, well, you know what, Sam did this, Sam did that, or well, I wouldn't have took my helmet off. Well, then that just kind of proves of what you are. Sorry to say that. If you guys don't go to dirt track races, then you guys definitely don't know why that's an issue.
Right.
You guys get these dirt track racers that get pissed off at each other. They take their helmets off, leave the Hans devices on, and just have UFC fights out in the infield.
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong. That doesn't belong in NASCAR. Okay, with the whole sponsor thing. But to me, if that was an issue for Kyle Busch, then why in the hell with Ty Gibbs coming up? We didn't see any of that out of him in the ARCA series. I mean, we saw a little bit of aggressive driving. We didn't really see attitude or anything like that. But as soon as he comes to the Xfinity series, it seemed like he got a big head.
Well, listen, we got to put ourselves in Ty Gibbs' shoes. We remember what it was like to be 18, 19, 20 years old, and the amount of adrenaline we could get, the amount of testosterone that gets built up, especially with sports. For those that play sports, there's a different mindset that's going on in your head. Being male, and I can't speak on the side of females, I'm not a female, but being male, the competition gets so intense that you borderline black out. You're still able to focus on your goal, but everything else blacks out. There's no audience, there's no nothing. Like sometimes even the coaches kind of disappear. So Ty's got his spotter in one ear, he's got his crew chief in his other ear telling him, stop, don't do that, stop, don't do that. And you don't hear it. All you see is one thing, and that's Sam Mayer's face. That could attribute to him not taking off his helmet too. We don't know. I always try to put myself in the position of the person in question to try and get a full understanding of where
rather than coming at it from just one side.
Right. I could come at a 37-year-old man in San Antonio, Texas, and have no idea. But if I put myself in Ty's shoes, all right, I'm a 20-year-old hothead. I've got grandpa's money and I've got a badass race car under my ass. Yeah, you're going to walk up to somebody with a little more of a swag in your step, you know?
And I take nothing away from Ty. I think he has grown up a lot in the last 2 years since, and he's minding his P's and Q's. Coming up through the Xfinity series, he didn't really make a good name for himself coming up. Starting with the Sam Mayer incident at Martinsville. And then you had at Martinsville again later that year, him booting Brandon Jones out of the way.
Yeah.
A teammate.
That was crazy.
And just the punk attitude that came out of that, to me, I think that's what that's what had a lot of people set in stone about Ty Gibbs.
Right.
Coming up to the Cup Series, that he just really didn't deserve that ride because of the shit that was going on in the Xfinity Series.
Right. And I don't blame people for having that mindset on Ty Gibbs. Ty, to piggyback on what you said, Ty seems like he's really trying to make a clean slate for himself. And one thing that I've noticed is people are always a product of jump on something, harp on it, and then they're over it by next week. They're talking about something else. They're complaining about something else or discussing. With some of these old school NASCAR fans, it's not really the same case, right? They hold grudges, man. It's a really interesting mindset, if you will, of how hard they will throw grudges. I was at the COTA race last year. I was a new Ross Chastain fan, and there was a Kyle Busch fan in an M&M shirt sitting 10 feet ahead of me in the grass, flipping off Ross Chastain every single time he went by. And I was so confused. I was like, why are you so angry with Ross, But it's just I've noticed that with some fans, they hold grudges against drivers if they felt like they got wrong did or you didn't cut my guy slack here. Like they hold it personal, and they hold it personal for a while. It's a really interesting.
It was, and just to prove that, there was a fan that got in a fight with Denny Hamlin a couple years ago at Martinsville over the whole Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Was it Joey Logano or was it Alex Bowman?
No, so it was Joey Logano. There was just a small when Denny. This was the Gen 6 car.
Okay.
Denny and Joey were side by side coming out of 4, and Denny had used him as a backboard.
Okay.
Joey, I guess, really didn't appreciate that. I mean, who wouldn't?
Not many would.
But Joey was really calm about it when they approached. It was on. You couldn't really hear anything but a couple of words. But Joey had his talk, and he kind of shoved Denny a little bit, and Denny got pissed and went after him.
Okay, I do remember that.
Now I know the old man that got in a fight with Denny Hamlin over the Chase Elliott bullshit in 2017. Were you a fan then?
Oh yeah.
Okay. When Denny lifted Chase's back tires up off the ground and sent him into the wall, right. That night there was a heavier set old man that had grabbed Denny Hamlin by the back of the fire suit and had thrown him to the ground, and they had started swinging.
That's right.
Well, police and security and all that stuff got him, and the guy was just yelling at Denny, fuck you, you're a little bitch. Why would you do that? He's just a fucking kid, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, one, I don't agree with what Denny did. You know, right. To me, that's dirty. But two, Chase Elliott, if he's in a cup car, means he's man enough to take care of himself.
Right.
You know, he's in the top, he's driving a Hendrick car in the top Michelin and the top level of motorsports. So I think he's got his big boy pants on. I think Chase can handle himself. And I think that night after the race, Chase handled himself.
Right.
And then come Phoenix later that year, you know, with Chase Elliott cutting Denny's tire down.
Yeah.
At Phoenix, you know, to me, Chase said it best. If you didn't have anything nice to say, Mama already said, if you didn't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Right.
He said, we're going to go on to Texas, and we're going to put our focus there. Put Denny Hamlin in the rearview mirror. So the fans, man, they get into it.
Yeah. Really...
The same thing, Denny Hamlin and Alex Bowman. The incident when Denny slammed his brakes and was doing that whole nose thing with Bowman. Somebody threw, I can't remember, it was a beer can or a water bottle from the top of the stands and nailed the camera on the top of the car.
Yeah.
I remember reading somewhere on Twitter, the Carolina Panthers had said something about they wanted to know who that fan was because they needed a new quarterback. So it's cool, the fan interaction that you guys get with the drivers, and then especially the media, and then the funny stuff that comes out like that. You always have those guys: Ty Gibbs, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson. Speaking of which, Jimmy's going to be back in the '84 car for Legacy for Dover this weekend.
Let's all keep our fingers crossed for Denny, because Dover is a very unforgiving racetrack.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what do you do? I don't blame the fans for the reactions that they have. To me, the reactions come out of complete and pure passion.
Right.
I believe that's where that comes from, and I don't put any blame on the drivers or the fans. Granted, that old man probably should have not wanted to throw down with Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, that probably wasn't the best choice of his night.
Because I'm sure after a race that he thought he was going to enjoy and that just pissed him off, and then a night in jail. So
yeah. And let's make sure we get that established for everybody that's listening. You can have words for somebody. Granted, there are words you shouldn't use also, but don't touch anybody. Like, I don't care if you're at a football game, but we've seen it all over social media where fans are actually fist fighting each other. And it's like, all right, guys, I'm all for wonderful, fun rivalries, poking and whatnot. Just keep yourself, guys, like, and ladies, like, ending up the next viral video for the wrong reason is not something you want on your plate. Let's just, And it's unnecessary because everybody's going to go to the next day and they're all going to look at each other like, why the fuck did we do that? That was so stupid.
That does not mean that you guys that don't like Bubba Wallace don't go out fucking trying to fight him, because that shit's just not going to end up good for you either.
Yeah, no, I don't see any fan interaction approaching a driver in a negative way ending well for anybody. That would be, you got to be next level ignorant, which I'm going to go ahead and use that term with the gentleman that touched Denny Hamlin that night. That's pretty ignorant stuff. So you don't want to be that guy. You don't end up in jail. Just don't touch. You know, say what you got to say, whether it be rude or not. I don't care. But don't put your fingers on somebody. That's just silly.
Yeah, I mean, I will be that fan. I mean, I was that fan to give Brad Keselowski a few choice words after he gave me a few choice words. So it was, well, I mean, it was a thing where I was back behind stage at drivers introductions at Martinsville in 2019.
Okay.
I had asked Brad to sign something. I can't remember if it was a ticket or one of the face cards for, you know, the pit passes, the hard cards.
Yeah.
But I was decked out in all my Kyle Busch gear, my yellow 18 shorts. I had a pair of M&M's Converse.
Nice.
I mean, I was decked out, and he looked at me straight in my face and said, "I don't sign entitled people's shit. Go have Busch sign it." And I told him, I said, "And I don't buy entitled people's shit. I hope you fucking wreck." And I walked away. And that was it. Yeah, and it came back to bite me in the ass. It came back to bite me in the ass because Brad led every lap except for like 7 and won the race. So it kind of came back to bite me in the ass. But the interactions you guys get with the drivers, you guys are always, the drivers, whether they're getting in or getting out of their car, are either going to be in work mode or they're going to be pissed off, or both.
Right.
I know there's a lot of guys, like before a race, if you guys find Kyle Busch before a race, don't expect an autograph, don't expect a hey, hi, maybe a wave or a thumbs up. Kyle's in work mode.
Right.
I know Christopher Bell, Eric Jones, and Kurt Busch, they're all the same way.
Yeah.
Those guys are there. That's their job to race a car. They're trying to get in that mindset like you were talking about earlier. You know, almost blacked out. There's no fans in the stands. There's no nothing. They're focused on what's at the front. They're focused on the front of the windshield.
Right.
So I also saw a lady bitching about Kyle Busch after this past weekend because after 12 years, she was finally able to take her kids to a race. And they were right there at the end of driver's introduction, and Kyle waved at him and didn't come sign anything or nothing because he was getting up on the Tundra or whatever fucking truck they were hauling his ass around the racetrack with.
Silverado this year.
I'm like, lady, he's working. That's not going to be every interaction with Kyle, but he's at work. You were kind of standing in the wrong place. Don't be, if you guys go to the racetracks, don't stand in the beginning of the fucking line and don't stand at the end of the line. You guys stand somewhere between middle and in the beginning of the end.
Right.
That's where the drivers typically start the most. They try to work the middle of the crowd, sign a couple autographs, and then you're gone.
Right.
Don't get your hopes up. Just
don't take it personal when they don't have time to get to everybody. Look, it's almost like hitting the lottery in some instances. If you're in that fan area and the drivers are walking by you, it really is like hitting the lottery. One, to be able to land your favorite driver, and for them to actually stop and sign something for you. You can't take it personal. Like you said, they're out there doing a job. If you're fortunate enough to be one of the ones that they get, be grateful. And if you're not, tell them good luck and have a great race. It's really that simple.
And it's one of those, like, it doesn't matter whose autograph I get because, I mean, you can see the hats that I got up above me.
Right.
There's another one I've got. It's got like 27 signatures on it, including Jimmy Johnson's, Paul Menard's, and Darrell Waltrip's. The only thing I had, but it's one of those that I didn't care for Jimmy Johnson. The only reason I got his fucking autograph was because he was in autograph mode.
Right.
I went to a fan thing, and he was signing Bubba Wallace shit and Denny Hamlin shit, all this other stuff. And I've got my big yellow 18 hat out here. It's my first time at Martinsville. It's my first time at a different racetrack besides Bristol, actually. Right. No, I lied. Because I went to Charlotte the year that Kyle won the 600. I was at the race. That was surreal and kind of cool. The first time that Kyle wins the 600 was my first 600. So
Nice.
But he was signing, and then he walks up and around my hat and goes back to signing shit.
Wow.
I'm like, what a dick, bro. What a fucking dick. But I'm like, I don't know how much shit I caught being a Kyle Busch fan. And still, not as much, but still. And then after he threw a bunch of Martinsville hot dogs out in the crowd, he got back in autograph mode, and I was able to get his autograph. But even then, I told him, I was like, hey, Jimmy, good luck this weekend, man. You know,
Yeah.
like, I don't wish anybody to do bad, or, well, Brad K can suck an ass. But no.
Be careful with Brad K, because Nathan is a big Brad K fan.
Oh, sorry, Nathan. I meant Chase Elliott. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. No, but seriously.
But it's fun. It's fun to have the ones you don't like, and it's fun to have the ones you like, and that's what makes the sport beautiful.
Well, man, and then those guys that you don't like, go get their autographs. Go try to have a 30-second conversation with these guys, and you may change your fucking minds.
Bingo.
I will admit, you know, when Bubba first came up, I was one of the biggest fucking Bubba Wallace fans. I will tell you, biggest Bubba Wallace fan. Every race I went to, he was one of the easiest people to get pictures with. I've still got pictures in my phone from where he drove for Richard Petty Motorsports.
Nice.
His first year when he was at Bristol, I remember that 2018 race with that bright blue and orange number 43 STP car. He led laps at Bristol that day. I remember seeing the 43 out front.
Can I take a guess when you stopped liking Bubba Wallace? Can I take a guess?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Was it Watkins Glen spinning out Kyle Busch? Or wait, was it Watkins Glen? The road course. I don't remember which road course.
Honestly, no. Honestly, it wasn't a racing incident. Now I've come back around to like Bubba.
Okay.
But a lot of it was the Black Lives Matter type shit that was going on.
Gotcha.
Not necessarily the noose, because even me as a fan, I'm like, okay, that's too far. That's bullshit.
Yeah, that's media.
Like, that's when you jump into racism. That's where you draw the fucking line.
That was media pushing a very weird narrative at that specific time.
And then, but the way that the narrative and all that stuff was going with Bubba Wallace being on board, I was like, man, I can't do this. Like, to me, like, okay, Black Lives Matter, but everybody's fucking life matters.
Right.
Like, I'm that type of person that, like, I'm for everybody. I want everybody to fucking get along, whether you're red, white, blue, black, pink, purple, fucking whatever. Right. We all need to get along. If you fucking cut us open, we're bleed the same. We look the same on the inside.
Correct.
And then with Bubba, I watched that documentary, and that I was already coming around. But when I watched that Netflix documentary, that's what really turned me around on Bubba Wallace. That whole it went through. I don't know. Did you watch it?
The NASCAR documentary on Netflix? Absolutely. I watched it as soon as it came out. I was very excited that Bubba decided to do that entire deal.
And the depression and all the shit that Bubba was going through, not just as a driver, but as a person.
As a man, bro. As a fucking being.
And there
forget that these people are fucking humans, and some people need to lay the fuck up already.
I will admit, when we went to the videos that you watched that I sent you guys, me and at Dega, that was 2021. I will admit, Bubba finished the race and in the wall, came across the start finish line, and he was throwing his helmet and beat the top of the car. And, you know, I will be that person to admit, I was telling him, you know, go ahead, cry like a little bitch, do what you're going to do.
And see, how unfair is that when other drivers we've celebrated for showing him that kind of emotion and passion.
And, you know, I had to put myself in check, because he is a human being like everybody else. He is a driver in this sport like everybody else, trying to make a way, trying to make a life, try to do what they love. And after Bubba left Richard Petty Motorsports and the whole the move to Toyota and the build that he did as a person,
Right.
and as a driver to help himself and the team. I believe the reason why Tyler Reddick is doing so well is because of Bubba Wallace. I don't believe Tyler Reddick would have had the opportunity that he had. Well, excuse me, I have to rewind that. I don't think Kurt Busch would have had the opportunity that he had if it weren't for Bubba Wallace.
I was gonna piggyback and Kurt Busch in there, but you did it. Good job.
Kurt being Kyle's brother, man. If it weren't for Kurt, we wouldn't have Kyle.
Right.
Kurt's done a lot for the sport. Veteran. He might not be the driver that Kyle Busch was, or the big next big thing that everybody thought he was going to be. But he won a Cup championship. I can't remember how many races, 30 odd something races.
He was up to 38 by the end.
You know, and who knows? Kurt could have had maybe one or two more if he wouldn't have been forced into early retirement because of the car. Or maybe he would have continued racing the next season. Who knows? Kurt could have come on to win another 2 championships.
Yep.
Nobody will ever know, and he won't be able to race anymore, so nobody will ever know.
Right.
34. But Bubba Wallace, kudos out to him, bro. Like, if you guys haven't watched that documentary on Bubba, I don't care how you fucking feel about him. You need to go, as a race fan, open up your mind and turn on that Netflix series, and I guarantee you will come out a different person with a different outlook when the credits start rolling.
Listen, I'm gonna elaborate on Bubba's piece, because that dude, I think, taking the most grief. It's right up there with Kyle. I'll give him that. It's right up there with Kyle with the amount of just nasty that you hear at the racetrack. I can't believe there are humans among us that can talk to people that they've never met, never had a genuine heart-to-heart conversation with, and say the things that they say to these people, whether it be basketball, all those sports, all the way across the board. Now,
Yeah.
It is blowing, guys. And I think if you just take a moment to just look up a couple things about people that you dislike, athletes that you dislike for whatever reason it may be.
And here's
probably
just
have some things in common with them that you never even realized.
And here's just a couple, bro. Like, so, Bubba Wallace. Okay, so watch the Netflix series, the shit that he went through. Kyle Busch and Samantha Busch. Shame on you, people who give those two people so much shit. Shame on you as a not now Kyle as a driver. Give him shit as a driver. Okay,
Right.
Do that as a fan. As a person, shame on you.
Correct.
Shame on you, shame on you guys, shaming on Samantha, man. The journey that those guys went through to be able to have Brexton. And here's the journey. Samantha ended up with Brexton in 2014.
Yep.
Kyle has his accident and almost dies February of 2015.
2015, yep.
Okay. That put a lot of dampers on things. Samantha thought she possibly could have lost Brexton at that point. Then you have this long road of recovery. Granted, Kyle comes back after 11 races from a broken foot and a broken leg. Wins his first Xfinity race back and wins his first Cup race back. Granted, I don't think Sonoma was the greatest place to come back after an injury like that. But you know what? Kyle did it. And granted, he had to have help out of the race car after that race, and rightfully so. The pain that man must have been in from having to use throttle, brake, clutch the whole damn day.
With no pain meds.
There you go. No pain meds. And Samantha going through the infertility that she did. I can't remember the exact amount, 3 or 4 miscarriages before they decided to say, hey, we're going to use a surrogate. And now they have little Lennox.
Yep.
And with that infertility fight, if you guys... for you that read, Samantha Busch has a book out called Fighting Infertility. It's on her website. It's on Kyle Busch's website. You guys check it out. I haven't been able to read it yet, but I follow Kyle and Samantha so much that I know probably most of the shit that's in there, minus the exclusive personal stuff. But that's the reason why we have the Bundle of Joy Foundation that helped 35 families last year have children. That were trying and could not because of infertility. And because of Kyle and Samantha Busch, these couples have babies.
That's awesome.
Joey Logano, for those of you not just fans, but a lot of you may know that Joey is a big advocate for not Alzheimer's, autism.
Yep.
Joey big, and he's got his own foundation for autism. There was a child. Go back and look at this. It's on YouTube. I know it is. I just seen a short about it the other day. I know. Oh, never mind. It's you. Joey has a autistic friend now he met through a Make-A-Wish, that this kid actually made it through what he was doing, and now they're best friends. Joey texts him all the time.
Wow.
They're best friends. He's been to Joey's house. He invites him to races and all this stuff. Joey does that outside the racetrack. Yeah, Joey's awesome outside the racetrack. And even inside the racetrack, you wouldn't think Joey Logano, but once he's outside the race car, man, the human being that he is and the personality that comes from him is awesome. You have Martin Truex Jr. that has the Sherry Strong for, what is it breast or cervical cancer?
I believe cervical was what she was dealing with.
And then Kurt Busch. And if you guys don't know already, every October, the NASCAR Cup guys run the pink window nets.
Yep.
And after the race, they get cut from the car, and they get auctioned off, and they go to a breast cancer the funds go to a breast cancer foundation.
Yep.
So there's that too. There's a lot of stuff. I know Ricky Stenhouse and Ryan Preece and some of those guys are involved with a lot of foundations. Look them up. Get to know these guys that you don't like. Go to the racetrack. Get an autograph. Walk up to these guys. Say, hey, they may be having a good day. They may be having a bad day. Don't let that get your hopes up, but don't let them get them down either.
You know, it's great that you bring up a lot of these points, because I've approached Bubba as a really big Bubba fan. I've become a strong supporter of him. I approached him at COTA, and he was so focused on whatever it was that he was doing. He stuck his hand up, and this is the third time I've done this with him. He gave me a fist bump, and I think it's kind of become, we recognize each other walking through the pits and we fist bump, and you just, it's what it is. You can't take it personal when drivers aren't able to do what you want them to do at that moment. And it's important to be grateful when it does happen, and to see your kids get to experience it and stuff like that. It's a really special moment.
And see with Kyle, so I don't know if you saw the picture. I might have sent it to Jordan maybe. Kyle Busch actually did the gender reveal for this one right here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had, which it wasn't we couldn't get a video interview or a video reveal because we were in the middle of an autograph session.
Oh, okay.
But we bought a outfit at Joe Gibbs Racing that was pink with white polka dots, and it said, when I turn 18, I want to be like Kyle Busch.
Nice.
And that was her coming home outfit, and that was the outfit that Kyle had held up for a picture that we did for our gender reveal.
That's right. I have seen those pictures.
And then Sam knows about this one. The whole time that they were fighting for a little girl, every time we saw them, the first time after she was born, we went to Fan Day. And Kyle saw her, and I was like, you might not remember. He was like, no. He was like, I remember the outfit. And I was like, well, she's here to fill it down. He was like, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I hate, because we have fans, when I posted that, I had fans posting on my stuff saying, well, that might have been an asshole move considering the miscarriages and this and that and yada, yada. And I'm like, well, thanks, peeps. But
well, that comes from what we discussed earlier, and people that have no idea of the situation, they have no idea your experience with Kyle and his family, the ignorance that comes with a comment like that. Because if Kyle and Samantha didn't want to do it, he wouldn't be excited. Like, he wouldn't have faked it, right?
Yeah.
And so to take away from a moment because of either jealousy or you're just miserable it's such a bummer.
Now, and every time we see Samantha, she recognizes me and my wife. And this one went to her first Cup race at Bristol. She's been to a truck and Xfinity race, but because of how late normally the Cup races run when they decide to run night races, she hasn't been to one. She finally got to go to one.
Awesome.
She got to meet Sam, and Sam thought she was just the cutest thing, man. Probably for almost 10 minutes. She did nothing but talk to her and just pick her up and squish her, and just like Sam was just all lovey-dovey. And it's awesome because you guys don't realize what kind of interactions you guys could get from the drivers and their significant others
and their families. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome.
It's special.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd like to. I know Bubba's probably started to recognize, because every race I went to, I was like, I got a picture of Bubba. I gotta go see Bubba. If Bubba's signing autographs here, or I'd be, what was it, Martinsville that same year? I stood outside of Bubba's hauler for like 4.5 hours in order to get an autograph and a picture.
Nice.
And then went and stood almost another 3.5 hours at the next hauler because Kyle's was right next to his.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, kill two birds, one stone. I said, I'll fucking stand here. I said, and I'll get one and I'll get the other.
There you go.
But the race experience, these guys are, this sport is more family oriented than any others. And the drivers portray that too.
Absolutely. The amount of care and focus that they put into the fans and how many stories they remember is really cool to see too.
And it's cool because Austin Dillon and his wife Whitney, when we went to RCR Fan Day, they had their kids out there just running around.
Yep.
As Whitney had her little shop set up, her makeup and clothes and all that stuff, and Ace was just out there running laps around the tent.
Yep.
And it's cool because, and it sucked because Brexton, we didn't get to see Brexton that day. The one day they decided to stick Brexton in school, and it had to be the day they were signing autographs.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I know. I was like, where's Brexton at? She was like, well, we decided to stick him in school today because of his racing schedule. I was like, well, that's a bummer, but school's important.
Just to give credit where it's due, that's the kind of parents they are. They're still, it's no different, man. They're just parents trying to raise kids and make a living, you know?
And if you guys don't like these guys outside the racetrack, find you guys a driver, or excuse me, inside the racetrack, find you guys a driver that has a child or that dirt races or that does late models on the side. And there's plenty of them. Trust me. I've caught Kyle Larson at the dirt track, Chase Briscoe,
Yep.
Kyle Busch. Let's see, Millbridge, when all those guys are up there and their children are racing. Lean back because I can't see. Millbridge, you can catch Clint Boyer up there. Cash is up there. Ace has started racing. Brexton's up there. What's Larson? Owen.
Owen.
Up there. And a lot of the times I just watched. Kyle just got done. I didn't realize Millbridge was this big. But Kyle was running non-winged sprint cars up there at Millbridge. And I didn't think, and I didn't think it might have been one of the with the micros.
Oh, okay.
I think it might have been a micro, maybe. But either way, I didn't realize that Millbridge was big enough to run those cars. But it's awesome. Get out, and that's another thing. Get out and go to the dirt tracks. You get these experiences. I walked up to Kyle Larson at the dirt track down here when he showed up. He was just another person. Me and her got a picture, got an autograph, fist bump, and we sat there with another group of people sitting there, and he talked to us like I'm talking to you right now, just another human being. There's just another person.
Yep.
They're doing something different other than you right at that moment.
Right.
Literally, it's the only difference.
I guess I always ask myself when I see people showing the extra unnecessary hate, I'm like, I mean, how would you feel if somebody just came into your office and started yelling and screaming profanities and slurs at you? You know, like,
yeah, really,
probably wouldn't like it, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like Bristol 2018. Kyle Busch actually got in a fight with a fan.
Yeah.
It wasn't. What was it? It was, of course, a drunk fan. But 2018, for those of you that know, Kyle didn't have too good of a night that night. Beginning, half the field spun out. He got nailed. Bumper came off. All sorts of issues. Almost came back to win the race. Went 3 wide going into 3. And Chris Buescher, who drove the number 37 at that point, cut a tire on Kyle Busch's 18, ending his night, finishing 26th, 4 laps down.
Ooh.
Yeah. Went from 2nd to 26, 4 laps down real quick.
Yep.
he was on his golf cart heading out that night, and a bunch of these kids, I was standing right out there, a bunch of these kids were yelling, Kyle, Kyle. Of course, you know, Kyle being in a mood the night he just had, but he got off that golf cart and went and signed autographs for those kids.
Wow.
And that says a lot about Kyle. But in the same instance, he had a drunk fan walk up to him, pull him around by his race suit, and socked him.
Somebody punched Kyle?
Somebody punched Kyle.
Wow.
And at that point, the police got involved before Kyle could get to him and all this. I don't know what the exact charges were, but I know he went to jail that night, and Kyle pressed charges.
Well, of course.
And after that, do you remember the whole aspect of the driver saying we need more security at the racetrack? That whole thing, that was because of the Kyle Busch accident, or the Kyle Busch incident. So, wow, we've almost got another hour and a half already, losing time talking about racing, man.
Right. I hope people are enjoying it as much as we are talking about it. That's for sure.
Man, I tell you, I get to a conversation like this about race. It's awesome just to be able to talk to somebody. And
Hi, little one.
we're getting you into racing, aren't we? Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I've got my 1-year-old nephew getting into it too. He's already got a bunch of 164s he plays with.
Oh, see, and that's her. Every time I go somewhere, when she was little, she wanted to play with my big 124s, and I'm like, yeah, no, those aren't playing.
Yeah. Nope.
So every race I go to, now that she's able to go, she goes and picks out her own. Even though them 164s ain't cheap, I'll tell you.
But they're worth it.
They are. They are extremely worth it. They're more durable than a Hot Wheel to me.
They really are. They really are.
She's got cars that I bought her when she was 1 still, and the only thing wrong with them is the paint's chipping.
Yeah, and which is natural because kids are going to play with their toys.
Yep. So I mean,
to be fair, Hot Wheels are only like $120, so you know you're paying for a
and
$10.
these things are like $8 to $12, depending on where you get them. Whether you see the Gypsy tents at the racetrack, get them off the merch truck, or you order them offline.
Right. They're great for kids.
I mean, and the sport great for kids. Like we were reiterating, I'm going to reiterate what we were talking about last night, man. Take your kids out to the racetrack. Get your kids involved. Especially with the stuff. Yeah. Especially with the stuff you guys got going on nowadays. You hear these kids dying from overdoses on fentanyl and all these kids getting in all sorts of stuff. Get your kids involved in something, and it's me. It might just be a NASCAR parent. But
hey,
get your kids out to the racetrack. If your kids are involved in something that's taking up a good majority of their time, they don't have time to do anything else that's going to either hurt them or hurt somebody else or get them in trouble.
Right.
So what's it hurt getting them in a NASCAR? I mean, the only thing it may hurt from experience, and I'm sure your experience, is their wallet.
Right.
Especially those 124 diecast, and that Tyler Reddick diecast hurt my wallet.
Hey, man, I'm struggling myself with the 3 I've ordered. I've already ordered 3 2311s. And
what is it? I got 4 coming in. I've got the Ryan Blaney championship set, the logo car, and the race win coming in.
Nice.
And then the Ryan Preece and Chase Briscoe Talladega Nights carts coming in.
Right. Yeah, so I got my blue Columbia and Tyler Reddick's win from Talladega, and what was the other one? I got Tyler Reddick's Texas car, the green and white one from last year.
Well, these cars I'm getting in are unfortunately going to have to stay in the box until I get another shelf. I've got 27 already out there on the shelf, and I've got 4 more coming.
How many total? So you have 31 total right now?
As soon as those cars get here, yeah, I'll have 31.
Let me see. I'm at 1, 2. I haven't even counted in a while. Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, plus the 10 over there. Yeah, I'm at 32, so we're just about knotted up, man.
I mean, and it hurts your wallet, especially for some of these, man.
Yeah, it's definitely been it's worth it though. Like one of the coolest things that I've experienced through the last year of collecting these things is the people that you run into, the stories they get to tell you about where they got the cars from, whether it be at the racetrack or if they got it from a garage sale for $5 or whatever the case is. All of these cars have a little story behind them, and it's really cool to interact with everyone that loves collecting and hearing the stories behind them.
I definitely love collecting, but collecting gets expensive. If you guys get into collecting, for those of you listening, pre-order.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you guys get online and see these guys are going to these guys that did pre-order are going to jack up the prices. So instead of paying 80 or 85 after shipping for a car, you guys are going to be paying in the 120 to 135 range plus shipping.
When you could have just gotten that knocked out with an Elite when you pre-order.
Yep. And you never know. Some of these cars you get may end up with value to them.
Right.
Like one of the ones that I've got right now, Kyle Busch's 54 monster car.
Yep.
And it's got an autograph on it. That's a several $100 car now.
Yep.
Like in the $400 or $500 range, depending.
Yeah, good.
In a lot of these cars, I know the Tyler Reddick, that baby blue with the white jump man on it.
Yes, sir.
I've seen it already going for $150 with no ink.
Yep. And if anybody that's going to be seeing this on YouTube later, that's the one he's talking about right there.
Mm-hmm. I got to get some ink on my 3 on my Gateway win.
There was the 3 that he ran with the Gateway.
Yes. The silver looks really good on it, but I feel like a red paint pen would look tremendous. Or a blue paint pen.
If you get gold on it, I think it'll look really good too.
Yeah, I do. Oh, well, we run an hour and a half.
Yeah, we might have to wrap it up, man. I got things going on here.
Oh, yes, sir. Let's
another beautiful hour and a half spent.
Talking about racing, man. Well,
Yes,
I hope all you guys that have been listening, have been watching, have been enjoying some of these podcasts we've been going out. Hopefully, they've been really informative for you guys that that are either just now getting into the sport or don't know a whole lot about the sport. But continue to watch for new episodes. Anywhere from 3 to 4 new shows a week. Definitely on Wednesdays and Fridays. I think we definitely did an extra show tonight because we definitely got one, or Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We did an extra show tonight just because of the all the extra stuff that we had go on this weekend at Talladega.
Yep.
But you guys keep on tuning in. Watch for some new episodes. I'm Kevin. This is Don. This is Motor Racing Podcast. Don, we'll talk to you later, buddy.
Yes, sir. Y'all be safe. Good night.